This is what karma looks like, folks, when you're one of Donald Trump's top prosecutors engaged in a vindictive prosecution, ignoring the law. Boom, karma comes at you fast. And Lindsey Halligan, Donald Trump's top prosecutor in the Eastern District of Virginia, who seems likely that she was unlawfully appointed, that she's not even really allowed to be the top prosecutor in the Eastern District of Virginia, never had prosecutorial experience in her life. She may have wanted to open up that Department of Justice manual, I don't know, maybe page 1, how you become a federal prosecutor before signing your name on pleadings. Then you could maybe get to page 2 in terms of how you're supposed to conduct yourself in front of a grand jury. And then you could start to, I don't know, get a little bit more into the rules about how you're not supposed to talk about what happens in the grand jury room with members of the press, even if you do it on signal chats, because that could get you in trouble too. So in a very short period of time, Lindsey Halligan, again, who's never been a federal prosecutor before, she was a beauty pageant contestant turned insurance lawyer who then met Donald Trump, became his legal team. Then she became appointed the top federal prosecutor in Eastern District of Virginia because none of the real prosecutors, including lifelong Republicans, thought that any of these cases against James Comey or New York Attorney General Letitia James or Senator Schiff or others were actually legitimate cases, and no one wanted to be affiliated with them. So Lindsey Halligan becomes the top prosecutor, and she brings all these cases. So Lindsey, you may want to know, I don't know, again, after people are questioning whether you even know how to be a lawyer, maybe your team wants to know like how you file a PDF. Never a good sign when the notice of appearance by the out-of-state lawyers who you've brought in, because none of the in-state lawyers want to be associated with this. You don't want to get one of these from your first filings. Notice of correction regarding notice of attorney appearance. The document is an incorrectly saved PDF fillable form, which we have removed. Please refile the document after saving it correctly. To correctly save PDF forms, click on the File menu, select Print, and then select your PDF writer from the printer name list. Then click Print or OK, depending on your program. Like, let's talk about some of the basic stuff, how PDFs work. How about we start with that? Stuff that if your paralegal did incorrectly, they wouldn't be your paralegal for long. Well, then Lindsey Halligan just got hit with an onslaught of motions by New York Attorney General Letitia James. One of them is that Lindsey Halligan was unlawfully appointed. And over the objections of Halligan and others, the federal judge, Judge Walker, and New York Attorney General Letitia James' case immediately consolidated and referred that motion to be consolidated with the motion by James Comey, which also argues that Lindsey Halligan is unlawfully appointed. Lindsey Halligan, by the way, who, from what we've heard about her appearance in these court, she gets so nervous that she shakes side to side and she can't stand still because she's literally panicking in her seat. She's going to have to go under oath and take the witness stand, I'm sure, at some point. And I wish they had cameras in federal courts, although we're going to try to send some people to be there to see what that's like when she's questioned about her appointment. But then it doesn't get much easier after she has to deal with that hearing, which, by the way, this is a rocket docket, so these hearings come at you quick. November 13th, 2 to 3 weeks from now, that's going to be a hearing on whether she was appointed lawfully or not. New York Attorney General Letitia James then filed a motion based on Lindsey Halligan direct messaging Ann Bauer, a reporter who we've had here on the MeidasTouch Network and Legal AF before. And Lindsey Halligan just started talking about what goes down in the grand jury. And hey, Lindsey Halligan's like, hey, Ann Bauer, you don't know what you're talking about. That's not really what went down. Because one of the things that Ann Bauer's been talking about is that while the indictments against New York Attorney General Letitia James state that James made thousands of dollars from rental income, sources tell ABC News that prosecutors found no record of James collecting rent from her niece, who lived in that second property, beyond $1,350 that James reported on her 2020 tax return. So it seems like the indictment was a fabrication. It seems like what Halligan may have told the grand jury was a total fabrication. And when Lindsey Halligan tried to attack the reporter and say, that's not what went down in the grand jury, the reporter said, okay, so what went down? And Lindsey Halligan's like, you're just wrong. You're just wrong. And then Lindsey Halligan realized, I'm not supposed to be talking about reporters at all about what goes down in the grand jury. So Lindsey Halligan said, this was all off the record, right? And Ann Bauer, the reporter, says, that's not the way it works. I'm writing a story on this. So New York Attorney General Letitia James said, that's improper conduct. She's already talking about what goes down in the grand jury. That's sanctionable. That goes against every rule that we know, from local rules to ethical rules to DOJ rules about prosecutors. And then you have the vindictive prosecution motion by New York Attorney General Letitia James, which is set to be heard on December 5th, which is talking about how she was targeted by Halligan and Trump. And we have the message from Trump. Essentially, the message from Trump's like, hey, everybody, I'm vindictive. I'm vindictive, and this is hurting my reputation. Hey, Pam Bondi, go after New York Attorney General Letitia James. Go after Comey. Go after Schiff. I'm being vindictive. Like, if you wrote a question like this on a first-year law exam about whether this was vindictive prosecution based on that message, you'd be like, you'd tell your law school buddy, well, we got an easy one, easy fact pattern there. They don't make fact patterns like that in law school because it's so obvious. Let me just show you what New York Attorney General Letitia James said outside the courtroom, where she goes, I will do my job each and every day. I'm not backing down. Play this clip.
For the rights of New Yorkers and Americans, and I will not be deterred.
That's a lie.
And I will not be deterred. I will not be distracted. I will do my job each and every day, and that's why I'm headed back to New York, because there's work to be done. Standing up for the rule of law. God bless you and thank you all, and I appreciate you.
And let's bring in Harry Litman from the Talking Feds YouTube channel, Talking Feds Substack. A lot to unpack there, Harry. That's why I just ramble, to let you unpack it and see what you can do.
I'll see what I can do. What an unbelievable mess, top to bottom. Let's start with that incredibly embarrassing notice from the court. By the way, you did this completely wrong. To me, what that's illustrative of, Ben, is she is on her own. I was a United States attorney. If I worked on a case, you can be darn sure that 6 paralegals would go over it to protect me, to make sure it couldn't happen. She's come in to do these cases, and the cases at least, the entire staff holds them in contempt, and holds in contempt the browbeating process of trying to make them do a case in contravention of their most basic oath of justice without fear or favor, and never ever bringing a case without the facts and law being there to support it. So this is, I think, the same reason that she went in there alone. And we have this bizarre detail. One day we'll figure out, but she says she didn't even tell the main justice people that she was going in to handle this indictment against a sitting attorney general from New York. And yeah, I just thought she'd, sort of handle it between, meetings and errands. She, goes in there alone, and even has had to bring people dragoon from other offices to do it. So that's her embarrassment is, I'm sure, aggravated. She must be so frustrated and angry that the whole office isn't behind her, but there's a good reason for that. I mean, this is kind of like, when you think about it, having been a U.S. attorney, a Hitchcock movie where all of a sudden, hey, you're the U.S. attorney, and go in and figure this out. And then you wake up, and she's not waking up, and you almost feel bad for her, except in this very exchange with Anna Bauer that you highlight and that James has used as the basis for the latest motion against her. She's not only a total rube, excuse me, please, not knowing saying after the conversation is done, oh, this is off the record. What more kind of naivete can you have? And as you say, a likely violation, at least playing footsie with it, of what happened in the grand jury, which any U.S. attorney knows not to go within 20 miles of. But then in addition, she's a bully. You can really, Anna Bauer says, okay, I listen to you. What is it? And then she just trashes her and says, basically, if you ever want to work in this town again, you'll change things, but I won't tell you how. So I don't even, although I identify her in this, Hitchcock movie mode, I don't feel bad for her. And of course, who is she? She's one of the 100 people out there who at every turn have decided to totally put their stock in with Donald Trump, do whatever corrupt thing he says, and that's how they will advance in this world. She was I think he noticed her. I don't want to get this wrong, but I believe it had to do with she's a beauty contestant. But anyway, as a lawyer, she comes in and she does insurance work for him in Florida. And basically, he brings her, makes her one of his people. And it's a clear deal. The deal in exchange is I'll do whatever you say, law, principles of federal prosecution, Constitution, be damned. So now she does have to, face up to it. By the way, just on the rental thing, the niece testified in a Norfolk grand jury, I never paid any rent. And when she went to indict them, Lindsey Halligan, she took it to a different grand jury in Alexandria, which never heard from the niece. Even if the indictment, Ben, it seems to me, is at all credible, I think what it'll turn out is the niece, said, I'd like to, I'm back on my feet. Thank you so much, great aunt Tish. I want to contribute. But the allegation is that she knowingly and intentionally falsified things when she got the mortgage, told the mortgage company, I'm doing this as a secondary residence, and actually always intended. That's what they have to show back then, that it was going to be some kind of rental property. Man, this is just a dog of a case. And, for Donald Trump, I think he just doesn't care. He'll have the car wreck, blame it on the libs, whatever. Lindsey Halligan, who's gone forward, and look, it's a serious flipping thing. You sign an indictment, somebody's liberty is at stake, all these things happen, and you do it without basis, and just because you're genuflecting to maximum leader, that can mean your license. And in her case, it might be there's already been a bar complaint. So shed no tears for her. She's doing exactly what, cynically she's decided to do. And as improper as it is, she may directly face the music, because she's the one who directly volunteered to go in and do his corrupt bidding.
But when you're going after James Comey, the former FBI director, he knows a lot of people. He was a top lawyer himself. He knows, he
was a U.S. attorney.
Lindsey Halligan as
take that back. Sorry.
As a former insurance lawyer, then you go, I'm going to go after the New York Attorney General, Letitia James. These aren't, you're going after serious people with serious legal credentials, with the top lawyers surrounding them. And you're Lindsey Halligan, a former insurance lawyer who shouldn't, this should be the most obvious no. And, and then when these people lose their bar license and repercussions happen, then they whine like little blah. It's like, nah, there's a reason why the Republican prosecutors did not want to do this case when they were applying the law. I'll give you the last word, Harry.
Yeah, well, let me also tie this to how they've completely hollowed out and ravaged the Department of Justice. A prosecution against a sitting attorney general goes right to the heart of the much vaunted, very experienced public integrity section, and has all these other kinds of guardrails to make sure you're not screwing up, A, because it's unfair, but B, talk about the potential for egg on your face. But now the public integrity section is basically non-existent. There were 30 lawyers. Now there are 2. The people, the supervisors in the office, including the kind of, this is how these offices work. There's 2 or 3 or 4 people who are really go-to kinds of, deeply respected. Their judgment is what controls. They're basically all gone. So all the things that would be in place in just this kind of prosecution are gone. And you have someone who's never done a case before, as if this were a kind of, tort on federal lands or whatever, the least serious instead of the most serious. So, it's Keystone Cops time, and they absolutely, Lindsey Halligan should have known what she was getting in for. One final point: in both these cases, if they go forward, and I think they might be dismissed before they do, we'll have occasion to see the grand jury transcript, potentially, depending on the testimony, etc. And, goes in knowing she's got to come out with the scalp for Donald Trump. I would be surprised if she played it completely straight and didn't do other really corner-cutting conduct in the grand jury itself.
But I want to remind people, the defense lawyers are not in the grand jury room. The judge is not in the grand jury room. Just the prosecutor with the grand jury, which is why we hold prosecutors to a very high standard, why they have manuals and ethics guidelines and lots of training, because if they lie in that grand jury room, they create a lot of problems for themselves and for others. So if she went in there and told fake stories to get the indictment, and with Comey said, we have evidence that Richmond and McCabe said this, when they didn't say this, you'll be able to secure the indictment because you're telling the grand jury fake things. And they'll go, oh, well, I guess if they said that, then that's a crime. Similarly, if you told them that New York Attorney General Letitia James did X, Y, and Z, and she didn't, and she didn't, but you hid that from the grand jury to get the indictment. Once again, this is Lindsey Halligan's license. This is Lindsey Halligan's, and there could be broader implications, because trust me, Comey and Letitia James, they're not going to go away after what you did with them. And,
nor will Abby Lowell or Pat Fitzgerald. They're really excellent lawyers. You got to feel this is a case where the chickens will come home.
And Lindsey Halligan, every night, trust me, she is sweating this every night. If there is any karma in this, she wakes up terrified. She goes to sleep terrified. And all that's on her mind is that she's going to sit in that witness stand where the best lawyers are going to be grilling her on what the hell she did. Stay tuned, folks. Subscribe to the Talking Feds YouTube channel, podcast, and Substack. Thanks, everybody, for watching, and have a good one.
Thanks, Ben.
New Meidas merch. Head to store.MeidasTouch.com today and get yourself the best pro-democracy gear and show your support. That's store.MeidasTouch.com.